Alrighty then. We are going to finally finish Revelation chapter 20. We're on part 4 tonight, which is the end of the millennial kingdom. More is said about that than pretty much anything else in Revelation chapter 20. So, but we have some things that are undone, so let's go ahead and go through them. Revelation 20, 7 through 9. It reads, "When the 1,000 years are completed, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for the war." That's just verse 7. So, at the beginning of the millennial kingdom, we already knew that Satan was sealed away. We assume probably somewhere within that first time period, but sometime during the 75 days, likely at the beginning. So, he got let out at least 75 days beforehand. Now, do you guys think that 75 days is enough time to gather up an army to come against Christ? A really small one maybe, but probably not a very big one. But notice here it says, when the 1,000 years are completed, Satan will be released. So, that little part right there, when the 1,000 years are completed, means he's not getting out until after the 1,000 years full clock has come to an end. Okay? I had actually missed that before, and then I caught it. It's like, okay, that changed things a little bit. It means it didn't matter how many days before he went in, he's still going to be in there until the end of the 1,000-year reign. So whether he runs around for 75 days, then Christ throws him in the day it begins, or he gets an extra 75-day bonus on top of it, we don't know. There's really no way to really tell. It's one of those things where we're just going to have to wait and see how it actually works out. But he's not actually getting out until afterwards, because it says it has to be completed first, which also brings in a new way, a perspective of looking at this. He's not going to get released until the 1,000th, or the last day of the 1,000th year, right? That's what it says. So is his army going to be standing there waiting for him as he comes out of the pit? Not likely. I mean, I don't think God's going to, make this announcement. All right, Satan's going to be released. Here's the grid coordinates. Go meet up with your buddy and then follow him. No, probably not going to happen that way. So he's going to have to get out. And then, after the 1,000 years, and then he's going to go on and do whatever it is he's going to do. Which poses a question. How long will it take him to do that? The 1,000 years, the end of the millennial kingdom, once that 1,000-year countdown ends, that's not the end of it. There will be time after that. And what's going to transpire during that time is something that's what we're really not sure of. Basically, it could be weeks, months, it could even be years for him to actually gather his forces. I mean, we don't know. It's not that specific. I mean, I used to have this thought that the kingdom, the last day of the last day of the last year, it's like bam, the war breaks out and we get after it. But actually, Christ gets after it. But no, that's not how it's going to be. There actually will have to be some degree of time. It's just he's going to deceive the nations, all of them. That could take some time. From the four corners of the earth, which means he has to cover the entire globe to do it. Then it mentions Gog and Magog to gather them together for war. So, and Gog and Magog is in the north. So and also, we don't really know what the earth is going to look like. We know there's going to be water, there'll be seas and oceans and whatnot. We don't know if there'll be more landmass, less landmass, because when Christ flattened it, we don't know what geography changed. When the mountains went down, did the land spread out? We don't know. We don't really know what the earth looks like at this particular point in time. So it's just one of those things that's kind of interesting that we're really just going to have to wait and see how it actually all pans out in the end. That says the number of them is like the sand of the seashore. I mean, when's the last time you went to a beach? Just stand right there at the shoreline, right? And look either direction, both both directions. How many grains of sand would you say there were there? What you can see, you can't number. What's under them is so many times more. I mean, what do you think? A couple trillion? Sands of grain? Well, this is going to be more than that. I mean, that's a lot of people. I'm thinking the earth is going to be very crowded before this actually happens. But yeah, it's amazing when you stop and think about it. And they came up on the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints in the beloved city. So they're going to surround Jerusalem, and fire came down from heaven and devoured them. It's literally going to be, they're going to gather up, they're going to surround Jerusalem, which is, I don't know. I've been trying to picture in my mind what that looks like. I mean, billions or trillions of people with their garden rakes, whatever else they have. There's no war or training for war, so they don't have weapons. Now, theoretically, if there's weeks, months, years for Satan to get everybody ready and organized, they might have some time to build some weapons. You know, it's really hard to tell, and maybe they will. It's really not specific. We just know there will be no war or training for war during the kingdom, the Millennium Kingdom. So that's about all we really know. Once that ends, Satan's going to be released, and then I'm sure he's going to start getting them ready for war, because it's not going to be bam the next day. So, and that's pretty much what we can take away from that. Well, this is going to be a vast army. I mean, I really do not know how many people. It's just that's a lot of people. And everybody who's in this army, it's going to be the children of saved people, basically. They're kids who turn away from them. So you have Pastor Keith has a kid. His name is Johnny. Johnny decides, I don't want to be a Christian. I'm going to turn away from God. Pastor Keith can't do nothing about it, right? So Johnny then decides he finds himself an infidel wife. He goes and marries her. They have infidel kids. They have 100 years to make as many, well, at that point probably 60, 70 years to make how many kids can you make in 60, 70 years? A lot of kids. Maybe more than 70. You know? And if they teach all their kids to be infidels, then that 70 can grow have their own 70 years to have 70 kids. And if they teach them all to be infidels, and you see how it's compound interest almost. It's one makes many, that many make that many more, and so on and so forth. I mean, it really depends on how well we do our jobs. I'm not really sure. It's kind of, it's the choice. They're the same choice that we had, to accept Christ or to deny Christ. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's going to be a little bit different, the circumstances surrounding, but that's going to be the purpose of the church. The purpose of the church right now is to teach them about Christ, to win souls for Christ, or actually to lead them to Christ, to be more accurate. Our jobs will be the exact same job in the Millennium Kingdom. We have unsaved people, fleshy, sinful people, and we got to get them saved. That's going to be our job. And there's another thing. It says the fire came from heaven, right? Well, Christ isn't in heaven, which means that God himself is going to destroy them. Christ could. I mean, he destroyed all the armies of the Antichrist whenever he came down and came back for the second coming. Not that he can't do it, but literally when this happens, God's going to step in and intervene himself. It's like God's going to put an end to all sin. Because once these sinners are done away with, there will be no more sin in the world. Well, I mean, at least, I don't know. That's one of those things, because you still have the saved flesh. They're fleshies too. The ones that made it past 100 years of age, which some of them are pushing over 1,000 years at this point in time. Imagine what does the 1,000-year-old man look like? There's probably not much left to him. You know? Oh, this frail, skinny old man in a hover boat, little capsule that gets carried everywhere because he can't walk. There's almost no way. Have like maybe feeding tubes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, then again, if they age really slow, maybe he'll look like a 100-year-old man and be in really good shape, still have muscle mass and everything. Who knows? It's going to be really interesting to see how God decides to do all this. But the uprising against Christ, it's going to be sad. It is. If they have years to prepare, then it won't be as bad. But if they only have like a really, really short time, like a couple months, how many weapons can you make in a couple months? I mean, it might literally be swords and spears coming at Christ, shaking your swords and spears at him. I mean, if your nuke saying can't do it, what do you think your swords and spears are going to do? I don't know. So, Ezekiel 39 talks about how that it's the second Gog-Magog war, okay? And it talks about how the weapons will be burned for 7 years. That's all it's going to take. It says they won't even need to harvest trees for firewood because they're going to still be burning the weapons for 7 years. So that tells me something very, very specific. That if that Gog-Magog war is the second one, it really is the second one, the one that comes at the end of the Millennial Kingdom, that means there will be at least another 7 years after that war takes place. So you could have Satan being released, the Millennial Kingdom end, weeks, months, years for Satan to get all his armies together. The war happens, and then another 7 years where they're just burning the stuff. So how many years will we still be on earth before God comes down? Some of this I'll have to wait till next week to get the answer for. And I still think Ezekiel 38, I still think that Gog-Magog war is the one that precedes the tribulation. I do. That's just the way things are worded. And I think what I'm going to do is, after we're done with Revelation, I think I'm going to take a night and go over those two in detail to explain the differences and why I think which one's which. Okay. Back in Revelation, chapter 20, verse 10, it reads, "And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are also, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever." So here we see a picture that the difference, this is the punishment that's different from every other sinner on the planet. These three have a separate punishment. Okay? They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. For eternity, they will be punished for their sins. And I'm not going to get too much into what I want to right now. I talked with Pastor Keith earlier, and it's another little one-night study I'm going to do. But I was listening to a Christian man earlier, and he said some things that have totally challenges standard biblical doctrine. And if I haven't had a chance to look through everything yet, but once I do, you guys might actually get to hear me not blaspheme or anything like that, but it's not blasphemous at all. It's actually scriptural. But I think there's a scripture in the Bible that says, in the last days, knowledge will be revealed. Knowledge will be increased. And I think God is actually doing that in some areas that a lot of people are not going to want to accept. But honestly, when I heard it, the flesh part of me goes, that's not what you were taught your whole life. That means your whole life it was wrong. Well, if it was, it doesn't change.